Well, hello there, and welcome to this episode of the Terri Cole Show. I want to start with a question. Are you someone who proudly exclaims that you never get angry or that you're super chill? Or, on the other hand, are you someone who waits so long to deal with their anger that when it finally comes out, you explode and feel really guilty about what you say and wish you could take it back? Anybody? Well, either way, if you're raising your hand or nodding your head, this video is for you. In this video, I'm breaking down the 6 different types of anger that people experience, and then I'm going to give you some questions that you can answer so that you can identify why you personally relate to anger the way that you do, and a few ideas of things that you can do to have a healthier relationship with your anger, because it's not just about trying to suppress or subdue the anger. It's really about honoring the anger. So, hey, before we get started, if you happen to be new to my channel, hi, welcome. Make sure you hit the bell, make sure you hit subscribe, because I release new stuff every Tuesday and Thursday, and I do not want you to miss a thing. My name is Terri Cole. I'm a licensed psychotherapist, a relationship expert, and the author of Boundary Boss, which you can get at boundarybossbook.com. Thank you for all of your questions and all of your comments. You know I read them all, and I love to highlight you guys who are here on this YouTube channel. So I'm highlighting a comment from Low Terrace under the episode 7 Mother Types and Emotional Impact from a couple of weeks ago. And they say, thank you so much for yet again spreading your wisdom. It is such a help. I have so many aha moments. Things are beginning to make sense. I'm really grateful. Thank you. Well, Low Terrace, thank you for being a part of this crew. I super appreciate you. All right, let's move on to today's content, shall we? I think we shall. Anger. Oh, Lord, it is a complicated emotion. And many of us, especially if you were raised as a woman, especially if you were raised as a good girl, if it was all about being nice, the way that you were raised, maybe, because that's the way that I was raised, being angry, what are the subliminal, messages and the straight up messages that we got around anger? Mine certainly was, just don't be angry. That's it. Just don't do it. It's not ladylike. It's not cool. There would be a negative reaction, more of a rejecting action if there was anger. And listen, nobody has to tell us when we're kids, right? Nobody has to, you don't need to get an inner office memo from your parents about what's acceptable and about what's not, because we know what's acceptable and what's not by the way that they act. And we are so dialed in and so adaptive, right? Because we don't really want to do anything that's going to get us rejected from the adults in our life, whoever those parental impactors were for you. So my own relationship to anger is super complicated. I'm much healthier now, 30 years of therapy later, but for years and years and years, I could not express anger. It was so threatening to me that unconsciously, and I actually write about this in Boundary Boss, the book right here, it was so threatening that I would turn it into a different emotion, unconsciously, literally all that happening in the basement that I wasn't even aware that it was happening, where I would turn it into like sorrow or sadness or depression, because those were emotions that were acceptable. But the thing is, that's not all I did, right? Since I couldn't directly communicate anger, I would do it indirectly, and I would use passive-aggressive communication to do it, and I would use slamming doors or rolling my eyes or sarcasm to do it. And again, not the best, right? To be indirect, it's confusing. Someone will get the vibe that you're pissed, but they don't really understand. So as I got healthier and healthier in my life, and then after I became a psychotherapist myself, one of my highest, most important experiences that I wanted in life was to be accurately understood. And of course, that meant I needed to figure out my relationship to anger, because how can you be accurately, right, succinctly understood if someone's like, are you mad? And you go, no, fine, I'm just tired, right? Because that's what I would do in my younger life. I would still be acting mad, but I would be denying my anger, which of course, who wants to be on the receiving end of that? My poor college boyfriend. Anyway, moving into, there was a study that was conducted by Harvard that said about 10% of people under the age of 25 reported having explosive anger episodes at least 3 times in their lifetime. So, like explosive anger episodes. Now, I took that to mean they exploded in anger, and I think that is what it means. But the study also goes on to say that with treatment and with knowledge and with education, 75% of those affected by explosive anger can actually change, right? Appropriate interventions, you can improve the way that you respond. Because here's the thing, there's 2 sides of the coin, as I said at the top of the show, right? You have the stuff it down and make it something else side. And then you have the explode about everything side. Or wait so long that you are then a volcano of rage and you are erupting and doing damage, right? Both of those ends of the spectrum are bad for your relationships and bad for you, because how you feel actually matters. So if you're angry about something, talking true, as the subtitle of my book says, means we have to find a way of expressing it. But we can't do any of that until we understand what is our relationship to anger. So in the guide, terricole.com/guide, I'm going to give you an anger blueprint, a couple of questions to answer. I will give you an anger inventory, a couple of questions to answer, to fill in. So you start to really drill down within yourself as to where are you feeling angry? Where do you need to put your attention? What conversations might you need to have? Or maybe you want to journal about it, and we'll talk about that later. But let's just get into the 6 sort of common anger, the way anger is comes out. We have assertive anger, right? This can be actually constructive, right? If you're doing it assertively, it's like you're saying what is happening for you rather than avoiding, right? Or internalizing or doing verbal insults. By being direct and assertive that you are angry, this is something that we strive for, to be able to assert the truth of how we're feeling. Because when we're doing that, if we're really healthy and if we're really a boundary boss, we can do that without disparaging the other person. We can do that without transgressing on the boundaries, right? We don't have to jump on someone else's rights or boundaries. It's a powerful motivator, right? You can use your assertive anger to address things that are wrong in your life and in the world. So it can be considered a very constructive way of expressing anger. And then there's a way of aggressive anger can also come out behaviorally, right? Like being physically aggressive as a reaction to angry feelings. So what does that look like? It can, what are we doing? We're trying to get it out. It could be breaking something. It could be, it could also be intimidating someone physically. It could be attacking someone physically. So behavioral anger is where you are actually acting it out. And this is really damaging, of course, for your interpersonal relationships. You could legally, of course, be in trouble because it's illegal to just beat people up because they're making you mad. Yeah. Here's the thing. Just because you feel angry doesn't mean it needs to go to that type of aggression and that physical violence. It's not the case. Another type of anger is chronic anger. And I know we all know people like this where it's ongoing. It's like a resentment of people. It's like an ongoing feeling of frustration and circumstances. And a lot of times it's literally turned inwards at ourselves. But think about chronic anger. It's almost like this low-grade annoyance, but it's so bad for you. This is just pulsating all of the stress hormones into your body. It's so important, which is why we're going to do, at the end of this, you're going to do an anger/resentment inventory, because we need to find the root causes of what is actually pissing us off. And it can be really habituated, this behavior, where we're just so used to being monumentally annoyed or right on the verge of exploding in anger. I see it therapeutically also as a protective mechanism, because if you're sort of always irritated, it makes people walk on eggshells around you because they're worried that you're going to, explode, and most people don't want to be on the receiving end of that. And then there's passive aggressive anger. And this is super complicated, and yet it's super simple, right? It's the opposite of aggressive anger, right? Or assertive anger, because this is more you're avoiding the anger, but you're still expressing it in this covert way. You can maybe deny it within yourself, right? That you're feeling angry. Like I gave an example of, my college boyfriend being like, you seem mad. Is everything okay? And me being like, I'm not mad, but I sure sounded mad. And I didn't talk to him for the next 4 hours of that car ride. Like, it's almost like for me and for in anger, right? Using silence to let someone know that you're angry about something. Um, you can also do things that will provoke the anger you cannot express to someone else, right? So you're basically invoking anger. I tell this story, I can't tell the whole thing now, it's too long, but anyway, my husband and I, we've been together 25 years, but in the beginning we had this conflict around time. And so he would be late and I was always early. Like we both had like a disordered relationship to time. I was super early person. He was not super late person, but just late person, or not as super early as me. Anyway, finally through talking about it with my therapist for a while, because everything about the relationship was aligned except this. And I felt very threatened by the fact that I was like, I don't think I want to. This is before we were even married. I was like, I don't think I want to like fight about time with this guy for the rest of my life. Like that sucks. Like, I don't think I want to do that. It sounds so boring and it seems so stupid, but I couldn't stop myself. And I would get overly angry. And then my therapist helped me see. She asked me, does Vic ever get mad at you? And I was like, not really. And she's like, I mean, you don't need to be a therapist, even though you are one, to know that that's pretty much impossible. So what do you think is happening? And basically, she boiled it down for me, saying, Vic is being late. When someone is continually late and they know it's going to provoke a rageful or angry response in you, there is some kind of secondary gain that they're getting out of that. So what was happening is that his anger at me about anything was too threatening because he didn't want to lose the relationship. So he was denying it within himself. So what he did is he'd be late and then I would be ridiculously angry because it's like he was disavowing his anger and shoving it down my throat. And now I'm expressing anger for both of us. So that's another, it sounds super complicated, but once I understood that is what was happening, I was able to have a conversation with Vic, who in the beginning was not like such a fan of this concept. He was like, I don't know, it's a theory, I guess, but he didn't really see it. And I was like, hey, I'm just how we choose to behave in response. Because when you think about anger, it's the same thing with the lack of forgiveness or lack of resentment. It's really torturing us, right? The other person, if we're not doing anything about it, is none the wiser, right? We're carrying it around and ruminating about it. So when you get to your inventories, you'll be able to sort of figure out who do you have retaliatory anger with, or who have you had that with. Again, to get the guide, just go to terricole.com/guide. And then the last one is self-abusive anger, where we're sort of turning our anger in on ourselves. This is really fueled by lack of worthiness, a sense of shame, feeling humiliated. You can internalize those feelings, especially if you have those experiences in childhood, and self-harm, right? Substance abuse can come from this. Disordered eating can be a result of childhood, internalizing childhood shame. Having a lot of negative self-talk can motivate this sort of self-abusive style of anger. So it's super important to be mindful that you're doing these things. And I think that part of what you'll get in the guide is just a couple of questions that have you really look at. How are you relating to yourself? Because what I found in my therapy practice in the last 25 years is that people are much more reticent to express anger that they have to others, at others. And a lot more, at least in my demographic, the people who are coming into my therapy office, and much more comfortable turning it in and being very angry and rageful at themselves. A lot of self-blame. There's a lot of comfort in self-blame and being self-abusive with that anger, as opposed to learning how to manage it. And you guys, this all has to do with also being a boundary boss, right? These are internal boundaries that we're talking about, the way that you relate to anger. And then, of course, they spill outward, and then they involve external boundaries as well, meaning how do we interact with other people. But as everything I do and everything I teach, we always start going in, because it all begins and ultimately ends with how you relate to yourself. So please make sure that you get the guide, and let's work on this, because you know what? The world is an angry place. It would be nice if we all had healthy relationships to our anger, and we're not displacing the crap out of it everywhere all over town, which it seems like there is so much of that happening in this very chaotic world that we live in right now. So terricole.com/guide. Also, if this was helpful to you, share it with the people in your life. I hope that you have the most amazing week diving deep into the anger stuff. And as always, take care of you.